Do you remember that business idea God gave you? I mean, the one that you couldn't stop thinking about. You were writing notes, pricing out things, making connections. You even told your husband, babe, I really believe this is God. And then after a while, I didn't hear you say anything else about it. Did something happen? Oh, you shared it in the ladies' chat. And they weren't exactly encouraging, were there? Now, every time the idea comes back, it doesn't feel exciting anymore. It feels like maybe I should just leave that alone. Listen, if that's you right now, don't go anywhere. I'm going to show you the strategy I use when I'm battling fear and discouragement. It's straight from scripture, and I believe it will help you through this season of your life. Purpose driven women, you are not out there chasing applause. You are not doing this for likes. You are doing this because God put something on your heart. You see how you treat your work? Like ministry in the marketplace because you know people need what God placed in you. So when you feel called to build something, you are not just building a brand. It is about impact. It is about legacy. It is about being obedient. But let's be honest here, walking in purpose comes with some serious pressure because the assignment is usually bigger than what you can see right now. And when you can't see the path clearly, that's when doubts creep in. So even if your spirit is saying, yeah, let me go, your mind start whispering, danger, danger. And that's when fears start to sound like wisdom. Waiting start to feel like the mature thing to do. And hesitating start to feel like being responsible. So the question is, what do you do when the thoughts wouldn't stop? And fear keeps you from moving forward. 2 Corinthians 10:4-5 gives us the exact strategy. So let's look at what Paul was telling believers. So Paul says in 2 Corinthians 10:4, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They are mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. So the first thing that came to mind is that Paul is warning us we are in a battle. And the battlefield isn't just about your calendar, your money, or other people's opinion. It is in your mind. But there's some good news. Because God did not leave you defenseless. Paul is saying the weapons we have available are effective. They are powerful through God, and they can destroy strongholds. But you may ask, what are strongholds? The Greek word Paul uses can mean a fortress, a fortified place people run to for safety. Now, in this passage, a stronghold isn't just a random thought that pops in your head. It is an entrenched way of thinking, meaning it's deep rooted and hard to shift. So it's an argument, a belief, or a mental story that you have rehearsed so many times that it starts to feel true, even when it's not. And once it is there, it doesn't just sit in your head. It starts shaping your decisions, keeps you safe, but not in the way that you think, because it blocks you from moving forward. It makes obedience feel dangerous. Strongholds are not usually formed overnight. They get built slowly over time. So they are formed from the environment you have lived in, the experience that shaped you, the voices that you have listened to, the thoughts that you keep feeding your mind on, and even what you were taught about yourself, money, risk, and success. So every time God calls you forward, the stronghold shows up to pull you back. That's why the moment you're about to move forward, you suddenly hear, don't start yet. It is too risky. You will embarrass yourself. Stay where it's safe. Those are not just random talks. That's the stronghold trying to maintain its position. But here's the empowering part. Talks may pop up, but you still have responsibility and choice. You cannot always control what enters your mind, but you can control what you entertain, what you agree with, and what you keep rehearsing. But if you don't catch the thought early, you are basically adding new bricks to the same stronghold until it shows up as anxiety, procrastination, and discouragement. So now let's look at verse 5 because Paul tells us exactly what to do with the thought and with the belief behind it. So 2 Corinthians 10:5 says, we demolish arguments and every pretension that set itself against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. So some thoughts aren't just your personality. Some thoughts are actually trying to talk you out of obedience because fear really said, don't obey God. Fear is more subtle than that. Fear says things like, be careful, wait, do some more research. Not yet, you ain't ready. And it sounds reasonable, right? But you don't realize it's actually steering you in the opposite direction. So Paul is encouraging us to catch that thought. But you cannot fight if you don't notice. And that's where building awareness is key. So awareness basically means you start living on autopilot. It means you pay attention to what's happening inside you, especially in the moments when you feel that tightness in your chest, that sudden drop in confidence, the urge to avoid the next step, the urge to scroll or keep distracted. Those moments are usually your signal that a thought has just entered the room. So that's when you pause and pay attention. Because whatever thought you entertain next will shape your emotions and then your decisions. So after you have identified the thought, I want you to name it. Because naming it is how you expose it. So when I say expose, I'm basically saying you stop letting that thought hide behind common sense. And you reveal it for what it really is. So you bring it out from the dark and into the light. So the thought might be, I can't do this. I will look foolish. It's not the right time. And once you name it, you stop letting it run your decisions in the background. And this process is key because it helps to reveal some key issues. So ask yourself, what belief is this thought trying to get me to agree with? Because thought becomes strongholds when you agree with them long enough. So ask yourself, what is this thought saying about God? Is it implying God wouldn't provide, wouldn't lead, wouldn't come through? What is it saying about me now? Is it calling me incapable, unqualified, or alone? And what is it saying about the outcome? That I will fail, that success is not guaranteed? So now let's go back to our previous examples about the thoughts. So one of the thoughts we look at is, I can't do this. So the belief behind that thought could be, God wouldn't help me and I'm on my own. I will look foolish. The belief might be, people approval is more important than obedience. It's not the right time. The belief might be, if I feel afraid, I shouldn't move. So that is basically step one of the strategy. Catch it, name it, and expose what is really trying to make you believe. Because once you see the argument clearly for what it truly is, then you understand that it cannot be of God and that it's his enemy trying to hold you back. So now let's move on to the next step where we demolish it. So now that you have named the thought and exposed the belief behind it, we need to do what Paul actually says. We demolish arguments and we take every thought captive to make it obedient to Christ. So that means you don't just notice the thought. You don't let it have authority over you. Because fear cannot control you unless it convinces you. So let's look at how you do this. So in part, I want you to pay attention to this process. You need to test it against the truth of God. So ask, does this agree with what God has said, or does it contradict him? If God called you, will he also refuse to lead you? If he give you the assignment, will he refuse to supply what you need? And then the next part is to test the fruit. So ask yourself, what does this thought produce in me? Because fear can sound like wisdom, but it always produces the same fruit. So if you find yourself panicking, procrastinating, trying to stay in your comfort zone, you know that it is not of God. Because God's direction will produce clarity, courage, and peace. And then we want to replace the argument with a stronger one. And this is where you demolish the thought or stronghold. So you don't just want to say, this is not true or I reject you. You say, this is not truth, I reject you, but here's what is true. So it sounds something like this. So going back to our previous example, I can't do this. Then we go to the scripture in Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. The next thought might be, I will look foolish. Then we challenge it with Galatians 1:10. Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I will not be a servant of Christ. The next thought might be, it's not the right time. And I want to take you back to that verse in John 6:38, where Jesus was telling us he came down from heaven not to do his will, but to do the will of his Father. So that should always be at the forefront of our mind when we are struggling with our decisions. And I want you to remember this because strongholds don't just fall because you notice them. It falls when you replace the lie that you have believed in for years with God's truth and you refuse to keep rehearsing the argument. Added to that, you have to start acting like if the stronghold is no longer controlling you. So, in other words, you start the project even when you feel afraid, even when you feel incapable, because you are no longer letting the stronghold dictate your decision. So, you are acting in faith despite of what you feel. This is what I want you to remember. You see that idea you had? It didn't die. It just got buried. So Paul is showing us that we don't have to be a victim of our thoughts or belief. We have weapons that are mighty that can pull down the stronghold that keep us stuck. So this week, I want you to practice this. When a negative thought pops up, make sure you catch it in the early. Name it. Expose the underlying belief behind it. Demolish the argument with God's truth. And this is also important because you don't just want to recite these affirmations. You have to move like every stronghold has no control over you. Because the moment you start rehearsing the light and start walking in God's truth is the moment you start rebuilding momentum. You see, the devil loves a tired, distracted woman because a distracted mind cannot walk fully in purpose. So if you're a woman over 40 ready to reclaim your focus, protect your peace, and stop letting exhaustion steal your calling, join me for the 5-day Detox Challenge, a gentle, guided reset to help your body relieve what has been weighing it down and restore what has been missing. So click the link below to reserve your spot now. See you there.